spring sports parent meeting. We're having a virtual spring sports parent meeting because we are unable to socially distance properly, especially for spring sports with the numbers we bring. We're unable to do that safely in our auditorium. So please bear with me for this virtual parent sports meeting. I am going to follow our agenda. You can see that I'm sharing it on my screen. I'm going to follow this agenda, but I'm actually going to skip the required forms portion right here because Mr. Jimenez has recorded a video that will show after this video addressing the really important final forms information, physicals, and all that sort of thing, all the paperwork side. I'm going to start with the ugly part, pay to participate. We have a pretty comparable pay to participate fee here in Stow. We have a $150 per sport fee. There's a $450 cap, which is the most important thing we need to talk about, especially in spring sports, because by the time we get to spring, many families are either on their way or have met their family cap. To explain the family cap briefly, if you have more than one student attending Stow-Munroe Falls Public Schools, if you have your student being involved in more than one sport, maybe an activity, 2 sports, you might be meeting this $450 cap this spring, or maybe you've already met it throughout the fall and the winter with other fees that you've already paid. So if you suspect you've reached that $450 cap, please do not hesitate to call the office. Our main office here handles most of the pay stuff. I just pretty much funnel and forward all your checks and everything that come into that to Sandy Weaver in the office. But she's always a good person to check with to make sure if you're on your way to meeting the cap or you already have. Fees are reduced by 25% and 50% if you're part of the free and reduced lunch program. 25% brings it down to, I believe, $112.50 if you're part of the reduced program. If you are part of the free lunch program, they are reduced by 50%, which brings them down to $75. If you want to make sure for some reason that you're still in that program or whatever, don't hesitate to call the office. We like to say, and I have here, fees are due in the office at least 1 week prior to the first contest. We've said that all the time in the past, and we've tried to stick pretty hard to it. But as is the case with a lot of things this year, there's an exception for COVID. We didn't harp on parents too much about getting that fee in on time during the winter because we were a little worried we might not make it through the wrestling season or through the basketball season. So now I am catching up, trying to get a lot of fees paid by the end of this season. However, the goal is, yes, we'd like to have it by the sport's first contest, but maybe we'll go by mid-season. Maybe certainly by the end of April. By spring break would be a good goal, just to make sure that we are able to have our spring season, as we obviously were not last year. But it gets to be kind of hairy with refunds and everything. If you do pay and the season is canceled or whatever, for whatever reason, for anything due to COVID, we will credit your account. Your account will have a credit for next year. But again, just to avoid any refund issues or credits, let's say by spring break, so by March 26th, I believe, let's have that pay to play fee turned in. Best way to submit that payment is by check. If you ask me, you're saving about a $6 or $7 convenience fee. If you pay on the Pay Schools app, which you use to pay for your lunches and load your lunch card and everything. If you do want to pay on the Pay Schools app, you will have to call our office, Mrs. Weaver, Sandy Weaver in the office, 330-689-5288, or you can email her at st_weaver@smfcsd.org. She needs to bill your account. She needs to bill your Pay Schools account. Otherwise, you won't be able to just log in as normal and find a $150 fee, option. She has to bill that account so that you're able to go in there, select the account or select the payment and submit the $150 that way. Again, plus a service fee. So if you'd like to pay by check, that's probably the easiest way. Have your child turn it in to the coach or the office or me. It'll get funneled to the right place. that check can be made out to SMFCSD or Kimpton Middle School, either way. The other ugly part of sports, the minimum GPA, and it has gone up. As of last year, we brought our minimum grade point average required for participation in sports to a 2.0, so a C average. In doing this, we realized that we may have a few more ineligible athletes, and we hardly have any here in Stow, and certainly hardly have any here at Kimpton. But we range about 1 or 2 per season. And with raising it to a 2.0, we have instituted a conditional eligibility kind of program, kind of a probationary basis thing. So if your child does fall below a 2.0 or does have below a 2.0, we can put them on kind of like a 2-week plan where they're getting signatures, progress reports from their current teachers who are reporting their grades, and most importantly, are they missing any work, since we all know missing work is the fastest way to earning a D or an F in a class. So during that probationary 2-week period, if they prove that their grades are up, they may return to participation if their grades started out at below a 2.0. When do we measure this 2.0? We measure it just before the season, the grading period that ends before the current sports season. So spring sports start on February 20, whatever the Monday is, February 23rd, 22nd, is the first day of actual participation. Well, our previous quarter would be quarter 2. So at the end of quarter 2, they have to have above a 2.0 to be eligible to start participating in the spring sports season. By the time we start having contests and games, we will be into April, and the third quarter ends on Friday, March 19th. So as of Friday, March 19th, when the third quarter ends, that will become the measuring stick that we use for GPA. So at the end of the third quarter, March 19th, your child has to have above a 2.0 to be eligible to then continue to participate, and definitely to be able to participate in any contests or games, which I believe our first contest is, I'm not sure if it's track or lacrosse, but it's April, single digits of April 7th, April 9th, weather permitting, obviously. Weather permitting, which brings us to the reason our Remind account to communicate is so important. I use Remind extensively. I use it most extensively, well, prior to COVID, of course. I used it most extensively in the spring. As we all know, Ohio springs can change at the drop of a hat, and we can have snow to cancel a track meet, or we can have great temps and no problem at all. So Remind is the best way to get an instant message out to your phone or your email, even if I'm in the middle of my school day teaching math. So if we have a schedule change, if we have a cancellation due to rain, a venue change, a time change, anything like that, I typically send out, if it can be sent in a short message, I send it out on Remind. Lengthy communication, I use FINALFORMS. So you're going to want to make sure the address you entered when you registered for FINALFORMS, which Mr. Jimenez will talk about, you want to make sure that email is not something that you just, a dummy email you threw in FINALFORMS that you never want to check. Some more long-winded information is sometimes communicated via FINALFORMS, and coaches are going to use FINALFORMS a lot to communicate with you. So back to Remind. Remind, if you'd like to follow via text and you don't want to download an app on your phone, or you don't have the app already, you can text our code to 81010. Again, you can text our code, which is at KIMP, so at KIMP, to 81010. That way you'll receive text versions of anything, of any message I send out. Obviously, you can download the app. The app allows a little more robust communication back and forth, one-way or two-way communication back and forth between myself and if you have any clarification questions or anything like that. So we have Remind, we have communicating via FINALFORMS. The website, please use our spring sports website. The link is right here. In fact, that is an old link, so this will be updated by the time you actually, when you see this agenda attached to the email that this video is on, This link will be updated. I believe that's part of our older provider for our website. So this link will be updated. Anyway, you can find schedules, away locations for the Suburban League, Final Forms links, sports Facebook pages, etc. You can find everything there. I think on the spring sports website, I think I'm accurate in saying this, the sports schedule, the lacrosse practice schedule, they are all Google Sheets or Google Docs, which will live update anytime I make a change. So they're always current. As soon as I get a schedule change, as soon as I get a venue change, a time change, I make the change, it automatically updates on that document. So that website always has a current version of our schedule throughout the season. So please refer to that. If it looks a little bare now, maybe it's missing some times, that's just because we haven't nailed down some start times for some games. Maybe locations is the same way. I'm going to mention, very last thing I need to talk about, I'm going to mention the Akron General Wellness Center. We partner with them, staff, student-wise, athlete-wise. There's a contact person on here, Mary Catherine Powers. That's her email address or her phone number. We're not partnering quite as much in terms of having her out, to speak via video to you guys, but she offers a ton of great training for your child, whether they're recuperating from an injury, whether they got injured last year and you want to prevent injury, or just to this is their sport and you want to make sure they're going to have an off-season training program that's going to keep them in shape for next year or develop them in shape for maybe a fall sport that they play. They do some great things over there. So not just a little plug for them. Unfortunately, she's not able to be here and talk to you guys about that sort of thing, but she can provide you any information you'd like with that email address or that phone number. My last plug is a quick plug for our booster club. Unfortunately, again, they'd be able to present to you. We're going to be selling some summer fun cash. I can't advertise a reverse raffle. We just don't have that this year, as far as I know. Summer cash will be sold. A good portion of each ticket that gets sold goes back to the specific program. It doesn't go to the high school track program. It stays with our track program. It stays with our lacrosse programs. We can use those for end of the season banquets, extra equipment. Sometimes if I really have to beg for some uniforms, we can go halvesies with Booster and the school district to purchase some extra things for sports. So that's my plug for the Booster Club. I will turn it over, or at least whoever's making this video will turn it over to Mr. Jimenez. He's going to, again, talk about the really important required forms, final forms, how to log on and how it should look to make sure your child's eligible to start participating. Without a complete final forms and physical, we don't allow participation. So thank you for attending our spring sports parent meeting. I'm sorry it had to be this way. I'd much rather talk in person. Look out for your coaches, lacrosse and track coaches, to be contacting you via final form. So you're going to want to get signed up on there quickly, or make sure you are signed up in your sport on final form so that your coaches can contact you with all the information they would otherwise be able to provide for you at the parent meeting here in our breakout sessions that we're unable to have. So be on the lookout for information. Thank you.
This video is an overview of final forms that will assist with the necessary documents that are required to participate in athletics at Kimpton Middle School. What is Final Forms? Final Forms is nothing more than an online database that allows the athletic department to determine the eligibility of your child to participate in Kimpton athletics. It is an invaluable tool for athletic directors, coaches, and staff to manage and monitor state-required documentation and ensures that we are in 100% compliance. Please understand that there is also a separate and different Final Forms educational component that is used by school administration for parent contact and information purposes. Be aware that even if your child is in the educational component of Final Forms, you will still need to register a new account in the athletic component of Final Forms. This video and the information on how to register for Final Forms concerns the athletic mode. There is an instructional document for registering for Final Forms that we have provided. Please see that form for a step-by-step guide to the registration process. Once you have created a Final Forms account, you will see a green checkmark box. Next to your student athlete's name will be 4 boxes that will be colored red initially. Your goal is to complete 4 tasks that correspond to each icon shown, and thereby clear your child to participate in sports at Kimpton. Once each task has been completed, the corresponding icon will turn green. So our goal is to get all boxes green as soon as possible and before organized team activities begin for your child's sport. All green means all good. I will now go over each task needed to be cleared for participation. The first task is to have a paper copy of a current physical on file with the Kimpton Athletic Department. The second page of the physical examination form included in the OHSAA packet must be printed out and brought to your child's physical examination. It must then be signed and dated by your child's physician. This is very important because that physical is valid for 1 calendar year from the date of the physical exam. The signed paper physical must be delivered to the coach or the Kimpton Athletic Department to be filed securely. Once the file has been entered into the database by Kimpton staff, the box will turn green and the number of valid days remaining will be displayed as a daily countdown to 0. The parent form is available as an online form and is to be read, agreed to, and virtually signed by the parent of each student athlete. This form does not need to be printed out. Once the form has been electronically signed, the icon will turn green. During your initial Final Forms account setup and registration, Final Forms asks for the email address of your student athlete. Final Forms will then auto-generate an email and send it to your child's email address. They must then read the email and follow the instructions to consent and virtually sign that form. Once that occurs, the student form icon will turn to green. Please have your child follow up on this form as this is the most commonly uncompleted box that is left red. Finally, the fees paid icon will move from red to green once your student athlete's paid to participate fee has been paid or your family cap has been met. So a quick visual checklist shows that a Final Forms account has been created, a paper copy of the athlete's physical is signed by a doctor and is delivered to Kimpton Athletics, parent forms are virtually signed, the student athlete has checked their email and virtually signed the student form, and the pay to participate fee has been paid. In closing, I would like to add that the Kimpton coaching staff works tirelessly to evaluate and educate your student athlete from day one of organized activities. Please do not do your child a disservice by not completing these mandatory steps for participation in Kimpton athletics. Quite simply, if your child does not have these steps completed and all boxes green, they are ineligible to participate on any level with the rest of their team. Please take the time to ensure that your athlete has a current physical and that all forms and fees are taken care of as soon as possible. I wish each of you a safe, productive, and successful season as we continue the tradition of providing a fantastic experience for student athletes at Kimpton Middle School.